We're here in Clacton following Nigel Farage after he made that surprise announcement that he is running to be an MP.
What I intend to lead is a political revolt.
He's just spoken at the pier down behind us. Hundreds of people turned out. There was a rapturous reception. And I got to talk to the man himself at the pub behind me. I think the only fair conclusion on the reaction he's got is that he has a real chance of winning here.
We need radical surgery in this country. We need braver politicians to stand up for us and represent us. And if you help me, as you promised you would, we will, on July the 4th, win this seat. I'm humbled to be here. I'm flattered.
So there he goes, Nigel Farage. He's just sped away in a car with black tinted windows. It was a chaotic scene here. Hundreds of people, largely supporters, a couple of protesters. He was treated like a conquering hero when he arrived. There were shouts of, "I love you, Nigel," and "Nigel, Nigel." And then he got up actually just on a park bench on the pier, no proper stage, just behind us here, addressed the crowd for a couple of minutes. It was one of those classic, chaotic Reform Brexit Party scenes.
These people here supported me in Ukip and the local MP at the time, Douglas Carswell. They supported me hugely in the Brexit referendum campaign, and they want someone to stand up for their beliefs. And I don't see that in today's Conservative Party. They certainly don't see that in today's Labour Party. I will be their champion on the national issues, and on the local issues, having a national figure representing a forgotten, end-of-the-line town. Who knows? I may well be able to bring some investment and do some good.
Well, after those chaotic scenes down at the pier, I got to interview Nigel Farage at the Wetherspoons behind us, the Moon and Starfish, with a customary pint in hand. Nigel, tell me what that was like out there.
It was rather exciting, wasn't it? A bit overwhelming, actually. There was sort of an emotion as I left, sort of shaking hands, and there's always an emotion in people. And I think that's because these people, this is an incredibly patriotic place. Look at the number of people wearing regimental shirts or badges, or a lot of ex-army types living in a place like Clacton, passionate Brexiteers, 76% leave, passionate Brexiteers. A lot of them have come from Dagenham and places like that. That to be frank, they've seen mass uncontrolled immigration change their local communities in a way that frankly, they said, we've got to leave. We should feel a bit sorry that this has happened to these people. I mean, actually, what I think most politicians think is they're just the great unwashed. Clacton, end of the line, who cares? And so I spent a lot of my political career here. The day before the referendum in 16, I was here. The Douglas Carswell by-election, I was here for a couple of weeks. And I've come back repeatedly to Clacton, and they want someone who stands up for their values, but they also want someone who, and I can't make false promises, maybe get a national figure representing this town. There are already some great engineering companies here. We just need more of them. So I'm saying to them, I will try to find companies that come here, because average incomes here are very low.
Are you now very confident you're going to win this seat?
You know what? I'm going to try my hardest, and whatever happens, happens. I think it's very winnable, but I'll just do my best.
Can you put a bet on it?
I haven't yet, actually. I think it's evens round the corner. I did back the Derby winner the other day, so I'm on a roll.
And what is your message for what you want to do with the Tory party? Do you want to make them extinct?
I didn't know there was one. They're just warring tribes. They hate each other. We have literally had a government that for the last 4 years has spent more time fighting amongst itself, subjecting all of us to this never-ending row, than actually standing up for the country and getting on with the job. And there's no evidence that says in opposition it'll be any different. In fact, it may even be worse, because the recriminations will be there. There's no way the One Nationers and, those that backed Brexit all the way and rejected Mrs May's deals, there's no way they can be in the same party. It doesn't work anymore. What I do know is to have a strong, united centre-right voice that actually believes in low taxes, believes in low business, believes in a small state, believes in all those things. It ain't going to happen unless reform is strong.
Do you think you can kill them stone dead at this election, do you, the Tories?
They've killed themselves already. It's got nothing to do with me. Just look at the MRP polls. Some say they won 140 seats, some say they won 80 seats. It's over. Labour have won. This is about building a voice of opposition, and a very, very big reform vote, and if we can get lots of Labour switches as well, says to Keir Starmer, be very careful on the European Union what you're doing. Very careful indeed, whether it's the European Defence Union or whatever else it may be.
And on seats, realistically, how high do you think
I've no
you can
idea.
get?
I've no idea. I've no idea.
It could be zero.
I'll tell you what I will say. I'll tell you what I will say for certain. I led Ukip in 2015. We got 4 million votes. We are going to get a lot more than 4 million votes. Oh, a lot more. Of that, I'm really confident. Now, there comes a moment when you break the electoral threshold. The Lib Dems sometimes win 12 and sometimes win 50. It's about getting through.
You think you can get to double-figure seats?
Look, ask me in a week's time. We've literally just launched this thing yesterday. I sense there's momentum out there. I just feel there's momentum. I guess the polls over the course of next weekend will tell us.
Yes. Can I ask this? Some people might see an issue of trust in you saying one thing last week and another thing this
Hang on
week.
a second. Who has been more consistent in British politics over 30 years than me in terms of what I believe in? Trust. Hey, I changed my mind. I mean, who watching this or reading this hasn't at some point in their lives changed their mind? I'm not ashamed of that. And I did it. And I'll admit, it was quite emotional. It was going out last week. I was in Dover. I was up in Lincolnshire. I was in Nottinghamshire. And meeting people, and I bet I'd have had the same today. Meeting people in the streets, and they're saying, why are you not standing? And I could see in their eyes a sense that I was letting them down. I mean, bad enough being betrayed by the Tories on the Brexit promises and immigration, let alone my core vote, those millions of people who journeyed with me through the Ukip days, the referendum days, the Brexit Party days. I got home on Saturday night with this overwhelming sense of guilt.
And on the issue of trust, can you say that you guarantee you will serve every day as an MP for 5 years if you're elected?
Of course. I did over 20 years in the European Parliament. I've said, reform it's a 6-year plan. This election is our first start. This is where we're going to get, the breakthrough, and we'll then spend 5 years building.
Manifesto, you kind of walked back one policy in the reform.
I didn't walk it back. Look, I'm perfectly fine to have offshore processing centres, although the Ascension Islands is quite a long way. I think the key element of this is deportations. Remind people, in the last year of the Labour government, they deported 45,000 illegal immigrants. Right?
Is it fair to say all of Reform's policies you're going to look at again and definitely make sure you want them in there? Is this big draft manifesto?
I don't think there's very much between Richard and I, but maybe, well, we've agreed today, we're going to sit down and go through everything.
Yeah, and last one, you'll be aware that some people in the country are frustrated about your rhetoric about Muslims and whether they're British. What do you say to those who say some of those remarks are offensive?
I'm really sorry, but just look at the photographs. Look at the images. Look at what happened in the local elections this year. We have sectarian politics in England. People voting along religious lines. I think that's terrible. Terrible. And that's been, and by the way, Labour and Conservative don't even want to discuss it. Why? They caused it. Irresponsible immigration without integration has caused it. And if people aren't concerned that 23% of 18 to 24-year-old British Muslims, born here too, think jihad's acceptable, I tell you what, think again.
There were a couple of things there in that interview just at the pub behind me that really jumped out. The first was that Nigel Farage actually seemed surprised, even emotional, he said, at the size and the enthusiasm of the crowd down at the pier. I think even he wasn't sure how many people would turn up, and there was a rapturous reception. You can't deny that. Secondly, he was super explicit in that interview by saying he would serve every day of a 5-year term if he was elected as an MP. I think that's an attempt to get around this accusation of deception about why he was saying only last week that he wouldn't run as an MP. And then thirdly, he was quite interesting about the Tories. I asked them if he wanted to make them extinct, and he basically said they're dead already. He's trying to get around this attack from Rishi Sunak, who is telling voters, if you vote for reform, you will get Labour. Farage is saying, we're already going to get Labour, definitely, so why not vote for reform who you believe in? So, is Nigel Farage going to win here? When you see that reaction down at the pier, you do have to think it is only a few hundred voters. He needs thousands of votes to have any chance of beating the Tories here. But when you see Farage's reaction and the enthusiasm he got, you have to say it is a real, distinct possibility. It could be 8th time lucky for Nigel Farage.
My milkshake brings all the people to the rally.